Welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Especially thanks to you, KD, for your presence. And we are very much looking forward to hear some stories about you and your spiritual journey. But first of all, if a few information about the session, if you would like to ask questions to KD, feel free to write them in the chat function, which is on the right top side of your window. You can ask questions, and I will transmit them to KD. They can also be in Schweizerdeutsch or in German, and I will try to translate them in English for Krishna Das.
Or Hindi. You can,
okay, that would be difficult for me.
Me too.
But first, I would like to say a few words about Spirit Bird for those who have never met us. Spirit Bird is a non-profit organization with the purpose of improving health of society in a sustainable way. Let's say this is our big picture. And why do we think this is necessary, or why do we want this? It's because there are many people feeling anxious, restless, or disconnected, even more in uncertain times like these. And they often don't know how to get out of it or how to help themselves. And with Spirit Bird, we help those people to make their first step or continue on their path to peace of mind. So we show you suitable techniques, tools, and activities to start transforming, to feel more confident, grounded, connected, and satisfied. And how are we going to achieve this? At first, we are building an open community. This is why we are all here now for the speaker session. We want to show the diversity of tools, techniques, and activities existing in the spiritual world, because we're knowing that not everything is for everybody, but there is anything for everybody. So there's not just yoga or meditation. There are several kinds of yoga and meditation, but there's also, let's say, qigong, taiji, sound healing, astrology, and there's so much to discover. And we'd love to talk to as many people as we can to talk about their transformation and share their experience, which will inspire our community and everyone in the session, nurture the community and motivate to start and keep practicing. So this is the community part, and secondly, which we are going to create is a platform or let's say an ecosystem together with the community that Spirit Bird will bring like-minded people on this platform together for activities. So teachers, practicing people, beginners are connected on Spirit Bird to practice together, share knowledge, and help each other. The main goal of the platform is to remove any unnecessary obstacle standing in between you and your path to peace of mind. So, for example, what we hear often is where to start with any practice, or how do I get my way into something? And there we would like to help find you a safe space to slow down and practice by showing suitable studios, teachers, and activities. And moreover, a lack of money or knowledge should also no longer be a hurdle to get started or continue practicing. So we want to help there too. And for teachers, whether you are self-employed or you belong to a studio, you can create classes, workshops, retreats, trainings, etc. in just a few steps. And we support you by taking over your administrative work for booking and payment processing. So all of this we want to establish because we would like to help for you to be able to focus on what is really important, and this is your inner growth, so your process. And this process is beautiful, but it's also very intense, and it's a big task. So that's why we are trying to help to move obstacles away from that are not necessary on this path. Finally, Spirit Bird shall lead to a more considerate and conscious treatment of ourselves, our fellow human beings, and nature. That's about Spirit Bird. If you have any questions to the project, feel free to stay in the session after we have had the pleasure to talk to Krishna Das. We will gladly answer all of your questions about our project. So, KD, are you ready to start?
I'm ready, but you know what? You've disappeared from my screen. It's just your logo is there, but I can't see you.
All right.
Did I do that? I might have done that, but I don't know how to undo it.
Me neither, but I still see
I can
you.
get myself into trouble, but I can't get myself out.
All right. How
Other
can
people
we?
can see you, but I can't see you, I guess. Huh.
I can see you very well, and the connection seems to be perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, it's just I can hear you well, but
Okay,
it's just your face is not visible.
that's not good.
Hold on, let me see. What if I click on show everyone? No, I still can't see you.
That's strange.
Wait, let me see. Hold on. What is this? Okay. Well, I'll just
Did you
use
figure
my
it out?
imagination.
Okay, okay. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm gonna appear during the session again.
Okay.
So, Katie, the first question I would like to ask you is, how did your day start? In New York, it's noon or has been noon. How does your day look like when you start? What's the first thing you do in the morning?
That's a good question. Well, really, the first thing, after I wake up, the first thing I do is I do some practice. That's the first. I take some herbs Chinese herbs I'm taking for my health, and then I sit down and do a bunch of practice for a while, an hour or so, maybe a little more. So day starts with practice of some kind, and it's taken many years to actually really for that to feel natural. Actually, for a long time it was very difficult. Many things would come up, but I really these days, the last quite a few years now, really practice has become more natural and more important to me as time goes on.
Okay. And how did you like integrate, or how did it come to feel more natural for you, the morning practice or the routine?
Well, I think it's just it's a question of ripening. You do practice, as time goes on, and you hear about things, and you learn about different techniques, and you try to absorb teachings about how to live in the world in a good way. But and as you just get used to, your understanding of life starts to change little by little. And then the habits that you develop of practice start to get deeper, and the seeds that you yourself have planted over the years, they begin to grow and bring fruit, and that fruit really is an inner understanding of what one needs to do for oneself and for others, what one has to do to try to overcome all the negativity in one's own mind and emotions. How one has to be, how important it is to be able to do that. So, yeah.
And by doing it on a regular base, this gets more like natural then.
Yeah, it gets more natural. It definitely gets more natural. At first, for the first 20 or 30 years, you really think you're doing something. And, but gradually you recognize that you're just, one of the words for meditation is to become familiar with. It means to get used to letting go, to get used to what it feels like to live in a more open, relaxed state of mind, with the heart more open, because it's not what we're taught when we grow up, you know. So to make that change, you know, to turn around, it's like a 180-degree turn. So instead of facing outward all the time, you start to look within, and it's something that happens at its own rate. You can't speed it up. Many people sit down to meditate or do practice, and they're really very busy thinking that they're doing something, you know, even something good, but they identify with the ego takes over in a way,
Yeah.
and rips off the energy. So over time, one just gets more at ease with oneself, and the way one practices changes. It deepens, and it becomes more natural. Your center of gravity, in a sense, gets deeper inside of you. So you sit within yourself and in your life in a different way than you used to.
Yes. And where did all this start for you? This, let's say, this journey to go inside and to feel these things. Could you take us back to the moment where you first got in touch with this? Now I don't hear you anymore.
I was saying 40,000 years ago, in another lifetime, I was living with a great yogi up in the mountains, and I used to sweep his cave out.
Okay.
So I got very good karmas from that, you know. And now, millions of lifetimes later, I'm starting to get a clue of what it's all about. Okay, never mind. This lifetime, really, the real beginning of the first moment that I really knew something was when I met Ram Dass for the first time. You know who he is, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I had gone up to meet him. He had just come back from his first trip to India. And I heard about him from some friends, just to make a long story very short. And I drove up to see him. And when I walked into the room where he was sitting, without a word being spoken, without eye contact, without anything, just walking into the room, something happened inside of me. Something opened up, and I knew that whatever it was I was looking for was real. I didn't even know what to call it, but I was searching for something. And at that point, at that moment, I knew that it was real, it existed in the world, and you could find it. And this was a life-changing moment for me. It was really the first time, in a way, that the lights went on in that way. And soon I recognized that what I was feeling was my guru, Neem Karoli Baba. And Ram Dass was transmitting that the feeling of his presence very strongly, because he had just been with him in India.
Mm-hmm. He's the one also known as Maharaj, you know.
Yeah, he was known as Maharaja, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very important, big moment. And then I traveled around with Ram Dass for about 1.5 years in America, and then I decided I was going to go to India to meet the old man, to meet the guru. So then I went to India.
Okay, so it was really at the first time you came in this room, you already realized for you that this is something you want to know more about, and you want to go let's say, deeper or you want to integrate in your life that just happened in this very moment?
Yeah, it was an epiphany. It happened all of a sudden. It was like, whoa, it's like it's real. I felt it. I felt something for the first time in a different way than anything I had experienced before, without any chemical help or anything. It was just boom, and that was really very different and very life-changing for me.
And how did you how was your life, or let's say how did it change you from this moment before? I read about you. I think you were a singer already before, in a group. But how would you say your life was before that moment, and how did you transform, or what is the most the most let's say thing to talk about that transformed within this time? You started with Baba Ram Dass and to meet Maharaji.
Well, I'm not, I don't really like that word transform very much. People use it a lot. Like I want to transform my life, or I want my life to be transformed by practice, by this or that. I don't know that anything really gets transformed. What I think happens is shit just falls off of you as you keep moving through life, and the things that were important just change for you because your heart is ripening, your heart is opening, and so naturally the things that are important to you, they just change automatically. In some sense, it is a transformation, but you're not doing it. It's you that's disappearing. It's your stuff that's disappearing, that's leaving your life, the stuff that's not useful to you, and the new feelings that you're having from within, it gets deeper and deeper, and so naturally you just make different choices with your life. And you do different things outwardly. At that point, I had my goal in life at that point had been to be, in a rock and roll band and be a singer in a band. But after I met Ram Dass, that stuff didn't look so good next to what I was feeling. What I had hoped to feel by getting those things, by becoming a singer and being in a band and stuff like that, what I had hoped I would feel if that happened, I was feeling all different from connecting with Maharaji, with Ram Dass. And the truth is, I would have never got that if I had if I had pursued that other path. And in fact, Ram Dass had invited me to live up at his father's place in the country and work for his father for the summer. Mm-hmm. So I moved out of my house and I put all my stuff in my car, my 2 dogs and my cat. And on the way to Ram Dass's, I drove to my old college where Jimi Hendrix was giving a concert. And, I knew all the guys who were organizing the concert, all the people. So I went there, and after the concert, I was going to drive like another 8 hours through the night to get to Ram Dass's place. So after the concert, the manager of the band that I had been a singer for, he came up to me and he said that the guy who replaced you in the band can't sing in the studio. So we have all the tracks cut, recorded. We just need you to come in and do the vocals, and then we're going to go on tour. And this is what I dreamed about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This my whole life, this is what I dreamed about. But it did not even for 1 second did I think about doing it. Because I had found something that was so wonderful, that was so deep and so real and so extraordinary that anything that nothing compared to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, sorry, can't do it. And I got in the car and I drove up. They later became very popular. They became a very well-known band. But if I had done that, I would be dead. I would have been dead a long time ago. There's no way I could have stayed alive in that situation. Too much, too much self-destructive tendencies here, you know.
Yeah, that's sometimes part of a musician's life. That is
Yeah,
really, really not healthy at all. Sometimes, but it is also possible to live it
yeah,
another way, I think.
yeah.
But yeah, very interesting. So, do you think that you've been talking about, let's say, not transformation, but is it more getting rid of your ego? This is something that is very interesting, I think. Do you think that this rock and roll life thing was somehow connected to your ego, and you did not want it or didn't need it anymore, and that's why
Yeah.
you decided to go the other way?
Yeah, you can say that, but let me ask you a question. Where is your ego? Point it out to me.
I think it's here, my whole body.
Well, possibly your ego, but you're saying your ego is your body? But you know when you asleep, you're not aware of your body. So where's your ego then?
I don't know.
Yeah, my point is there really is no such thing as ego. What we call the ego is just a, a, a conglomeration of thoughts. And those thoughts come into awareness, consciousness, and we get glued to them because of our desires, our attachments, our things we like, the things we don't like, so much stuff that we have, all these emotions and all this stuff. We get glued to these thoughts and we think, I'm thinking. But there's really nobody thinking. It's the thought thinking itself. Anyway, the point being that when one begins to do practice, what we're training in is just noticing that we are lost in thought and then coming back again. You come back to the practice, to whatever it is, the mantra, the chant, the asana, awareness of the body, the breath, whatever practice you're doing. The idea is simply to do the practice with attention. But it's very difficult. We're pulled by our thoughts out of ourself into really unconsciousness in a sense. And so the more practice we do, that center of gravity gets deeper. And even though the thoughts pull us, they don't keep us prisoner for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And then naturally they drop us and then we come back to our practice. So the ego is never transformed. You know, it the idea of the ego disappears over time. Ramana Maharshi said, asking the mind or the ego to kill the ego is like asking the thief to be the policeman. So there'll be a lot of investigation, but no arrest will ever be made.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the ego, whatever we call the ego, it's not going to give up because it itself is not something that can make those choices. We do practice, we cultivate the ability to release our thoughts, to not push away, but to release and come back, and keep getting more familiar with how it feels to just be present. And that thins out that glue that holds us to our thoughts and our belief systems and the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves all lifelong that we believe unconsciously. We don't even know we're doing it. And so, on one hand, a lot of the motivation for spiritual practice for most people, they're trying to create a me that they could like because they don't like themselves. We don't like ourselves. We want to be bigger, shinier. We want to glow more. We want more people to love us. We want this, we want that. We can't accept ourselves as we are. So a lot of people get into spiritual practice and they're just that the so-called ego grabs onto the practices and uses it to feel better about oneself, which is a good thing up to a point. But the problem is the ego just gets shinier and brighter and bigger and stronger and more
The more we're trying to shine.
yeah, trying to shine. And it's very hard to see that. Very hard to see that, which is why I was talking about the idea of transformation. That can also be just an ego trip.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to see that. Sit down, do some practice, and then live your life. Sit down, do some practice, and try to be a good human being.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's nowhere else to go. There's not spiritual life and worldly life. There's just one. How many lives do you have? You have this one right now. So one must learn how to figure out how to become a good human being, how to find a way to live in the world in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
That strength comes from practice, spiritual practice that you have to do it. If you don't do it, it's like a farmer not planting any seeds. What's going to grow? Nothing.
Absolutely. So there is a question coming in from Sam. I would like to transmit to you. What is the difference for you in practicing for yourself versus practicing in a group? And how important is the physical connection to a group when performing, when chanting in front of a crowd?
Well, when you say a physical group, you're talking about a collection of bodies. And
souls.
well, wait a minute. There's difference. The souls are everywhere. They're not limited to the body.
Okay.
Awareness is everywhere. Presence is everywhere. Being is everywhere. It is not limited or identified with the body. So when I sing now at home through the computer, once I start chanting, it's really no different for me than if I'm singing in a room with thousands of people. It's a different experience, no question about it, obviously. But internally, it's no different for me because my job is to pay attention to the chant. And that doesn't change no matter what happens in the outside world. And yes, it's wonderful to hear so many people singing and to feel that the power of a group, which is wonderful. But ultimately, the practice is inside. And, I've been doing this for a few years. So I'm at that place now where it doesn't really matter that much to me whether there's to the practice part of me as whether there's people in the room or not. And I find that everybody, not just me, but we all feel that space, that heart space, even though we're isolated in our little homes, in our sitting in front of our computers and singing, and I can't hear them, people sing, and they can't hear other people. But the space unfolds from within. So it's not just my experience, but many people tell me that they feel that, that beautiful heart space, even though we can't see other people.
Mm.
And that space, that space is is the same for everybody. There's only one of it, and it lives within us as who we truly are, as what we really are, as the love that we truly are, the presence, the truth, the reality, the consciousness, the bliss that we truly are. So when we tune to that place, we feel it. Now, at some, many people would say that, when you're singing in a group of 1,000 people, 10,000 people, it's easier to feel something. Maybe, there's, in those situations, it's a little different. There's excitement. There's people in the room. You're smiling, laughing. Everybody's having a good time. Maybe that's helpful. Maybe not. I think at some stage it is helpful, and it can be helpful at any time, but not necessarily. A lot of people, you get lost, and looking at the people around, wondering if they can go out on a date with somebody, or meet this one or meet that one, or the mind gets very busy in those situations. So that's okay, but the practice happens inside. And so for me these days, it took a little getting used to, but it's almost been a year now, 11 months since I've been pretty much isolating at home and not meeting a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really deepened a lot for me. I think it's been great, But I understand that a lot of people do have a hard time with being isolated, but for me, just throw me in a room, lock the door, and give me some rice every day, and I'll be happy.
So you don't miss hugging people, or like this kind of feeling, touching someone.
When you start to practice, when you sit down to do your practice, everything becomes what you let go of. Everything. Your own desires, your own thoughts, the things you miss, the things you want. You're doing a practice. So it doesn't matter what you think. You simply release it when you notice that you're busy with it.
Mm-hmm.
So in this situation, in some ways, it's easier to see my own mind because there's nothing else around. It's just me, right? And so that actually strengthens the practice. There's so many distractions in a room full of people. Even though when I sing, I can't, my eyes close. I don't even see people, I don't know why. I can't keep my eyes open. But so yeah, I mean, everybody's getting the best what they need at all times. And even though this is a difficult situation for people, it can be very, very positive and very powerful for our practice if we're sincere in our practice.
Mm-hmm.
That was a long answer to a short question, huh?
But it's very interesting. One more question about singing, about chanting. When did you discover for yourself that singing has this effect on you, like, let's say, this heart opening effect? When did you realize what kind of effect it has to you when you sing, and how did you realize that? Do you have a particular moment you can say this got into your mind?
I hate to be a cranky old guy, you know, but let's look at what you asked me. When did I recognize that it was a heart-opening practice for me? See, my understanding of what heart is has changed so much over the years. What I might have understood 45, 50 years ago has changed now, has deepened. So when I first heard chanting in India, the very first time I really heard in India, I was out walking around this town that I was staying in up in the mountains. And I was walking by a very ancient Devi temple, goddess temple. And I heard this music coming from inside, and I just stopped. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. I was so drawn to that sound and that vibration, what was coming from that temple. And so there was a guy coming in, walking into the temple, and he saw me standing there. So he kind of grabbed my shoulder, and he kind of pulls me into the temple with him, And I one of those things happened. I knew that this was something I could do. This was something I could give myself to. I could really give one of my problems before and issues before was really getting into things, really being able to be sincere and to really, really be present when I was doing something, not just practice, anything. I was distracted, all kinds of stuff. But when I heard that chanting, boom, I knew this is for me. So I don't know if that was a heart opening. It was a heart recognition for sure, And then, so I just started going everywhere, anywhere I heard chanting going on. I just went and I sat there and I just soaked it up, because I knew this was a path for me. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. And then Maharaji used to like to hear us sing, the Westerners. He loved it. And we also got to spend more time with him. He would call us and ask us to sing. So we would chant. But after he left the body, it was very hard for me. And I just shut down. And I really didn't sing much for many years. And for many years. I mean, I sang a little bit with some of the people I had been in India with, but it was just like rubbing salt in a wound, It was so painful for me to try to open up because I missed him so much. I was so attached to his physical being, his physical body, that when he was no longer available, I just figured my life was over. So there was no sense doing anything. But then, many years later, so about 20 years after he left the body, I was very depressed. I was very unhappy, really in bad shape. And I was in my apartment in New York, and I walked from one room to the other room. And when I walked into that room, once again, I had this epiphany, this understanding that if I did not chant with people, not alone in my room, but if I did not chant with people, I would never be able to clean out the dark shadows in my own heart. And I understood this is the only thing that I could do to help myself. I wasn't really happy with that understanding because I didn't want to do that, you know. But I'd seen that was the only thing that was being given to me. My only chance to save my ass was to start singing with people. So I had to do that. And once again, it was a heart recognition, a heart knowing, an intuitive understanding of what I had to do. I'm still waiting for my heart to open. I can't claim to have an open heart, but I'm working on it, you know.
So this was also, thank you very much for all these personal things you're talking about. Was it also the point where you started writing songs and started recording, or have you done that before already? I
Um, you mean chants, writing,
Yes.
singing? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't really think I write those chants, really, to tell you the truth. They just show up in my mind. And I don't think I've ever really sat down to, okay, now I'm going to write a chant. You know, it's not like that. They just show up in my, I always think that Maharaji just sends them down to me from wherever he is. And that they just show up like that. I don't feel like I'm writing them. But when I first started singing with people, I sang the same chants that I had sung in India, you know, because that's what I knew and that's what I liked. And but as time went on, the Indian overlay kind of disappeared, and the kid from New York, it got deeper and more natural to my own shape, who I am in this life. And the chants just started to become a little bit more Western sounding, Western music sounding. It wasn't like I was trying to do that, but it just was natural. Once again, you know, a lot of people ask me, well, you know, oh, I want to, how do I share my chanting with the world? I said, are you okay? Is there something wrong with you? You have a fever? You know, I didn't want to do that. I had to do that. And it all happened naturally. There was no program. There was no plan, you know. Even today, there's no plan. No plan at all. It just happens. So I first recorded the first CD I recorded because I knew I had to sing with people, but nobody knew what that was, right? So I make a CD, and then people will hear it, and they'll know what the chanting is, and then I'll get invited to sing, and that's exactly what happened. You know, One Track Heart, the first CD, went everywhere with very little internet. There was hardly any internet at the time, like there is now, and it went everywhere. Every yoga studio in the world was playing it. So I started to get invitations to come and sing, and that's what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So following your intuition and let it happen. This is something I think we didn't learn, or we forget to follow our intuition, and this is very important to feel this.
It's the number one important thing. To be able to listen to your heart. Listen to what you want, find out what you want, and go after it. And then, if it turns out that that's it, good. If it doesn't, then you're still listening to your heart, and you'll find something else. And you keep moving until you find what you really want. When I was leaving India, Maharaji was sending me back to America after 2.5 years, and I didn't know what I was going to do in America. You know, I've been walking around India in a red dress and barefoot. You know, that's not going to work in New York. So I I was sitting with him, and it was the last time that I was going to see him physically. So I said, Baba, how can I serve you in America? Right? And he made a face like he was bit, like he just bit into a pickle. Ah, he goes, "Seva put karne hi hoti." He said, if you ask about service, then it's not service. Then you're following orders. Do what you want. My guru told me his last teaching to me was do what you want. Oh, well, that got me into a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. But that trouble really couldn't be avoided because those were my desires. But because I kept listening and paying attention and trusting myself, I kept being led through different situations, right? And look, now I'm doing what I want. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing than chanting with people.
Mm.
It took a while for that to happen, to manifest, but that's part of the process. One has to learn how to trust oneself. No one can tell you what you're feeling. Only you know. And we are not trained to pay attention to that in the Western cultures. In my family, it was, it's my way, not your way. That's what my parents said. Nobody teaches you to listen to your own heart, and that's the whole of the spiritual path, because it's in your own heart of hearts that everything you're looking for, that's where it is. So if you don't trust yourself, what will you do? So that's why practice is so important, because practice is the only thing that we can do that can, little by little, deepen that movement into our deepest being. Little by, if it happens too fast, they put you away. You start walking around naked in downtown Geneva. Not too much. You're not going to last too long. So it's a question of little by little learning to trust yourself, regardless of what anybody's telling you. It has to feel right to us. And that's very confusing for people. Well, is it right to do this or that? What should I do? I don't know. This feels good. This feels good. It's a process. There's no quick answer. It's a process that takes as long as it takes.
So you've had that first moment with Ram Dass. What would you, maybe as a last question, or if anyone wants to answer a question to KD, feel free to put them in the chat function, in the chat, I mean. But maybe just one last question from my side. You said, I know there is no short track to let's say, to find inner peace or to get closer to yourself. But what would you recommend someone in the West, grown up in a Western culture, where to start with something, or what maybe something small to let go or to start or to integrate in life with a big impact, something that is, I don't know, something small with a big impact, where anyone without further knowledge or without further teaching would be able to just start right now. Do you have anything you could say?
See, even the way, once again, the way you ask that question and the question itself, is rooted in what can I do. It's it's it, it implies that I can do something to help myself, but in a very kind of, not aggressive, that's not the right word, but in a very self-centered kind of way, you know? And it's weird because on one hand, we're trying to become or recognize the selflessness, non-ego existence. And on the other hand, we have to do something. I have to, what am I going to do? So you have to find, there has to be a little bit of a understanding that, okay, everything in our lives is there because of our karmic situation. Everything that happens to us, all the people we know, the people we don't know, where we go, where we don't go, how we feel about things. This is all the fruit of our own previous karmas. There's no mistakes. So the question is, how do we live every day without being victimized by our lives? So one thing to do is to begin to see everything in your life as your teacher, as teaching for you. The people you don't like, it's not them you don't like. It's what you feel about them that you don't like, and that feeling's inside of you. So you need to examine why you feel that way about things, and the things you like and the things you're attracted to. In my case, I was attracted to things that were very dangerous and destructive to me for many years. And I couldn't change that. That was very hard for me. So, when we asked Maharaji, how do we find God? We figured he'd tell us. He seemed to like us, How do you find God? He said, serve people. What? Serve people? What is he talking about? Okay, so, Baba, how do we raise Kundalini? He said, feed people. What? He never told us to do any practice that was being done to save our own asses. He always talked about serving others and not thinking about yourself all the time. So it's for us, it's the only natural thing to do is think about ourselves. That's all we do all life long.
That's why it's so difficult. If you didn't feel what you felt when you met Ram Dass, it's so difficult to accept or to let go. Like,
yeah, it is. But you're forgetting one thing. Things hurt. You don't have to wait for an epiphany. Right now, you're suffering. Right now, you don't have what you want in life. Right now, you can't deal with your negative emotions. Right now, you can't find the love that you want to feel. Right now, not later, not before, not later. Right now. You don't have to wait. Right now is the time that you can do something to deal with your own negativity and your own self-judging and your own self-hatred and your own inability to be good to yourself and others. Now, this is it. Not later, not before, now. So recognize that. This is what Buddha said when he came out of the jungle. He said, hey, guess what? In this world, there will always be suffering. There will always be, things will always be unsatisfactory. They don't last. Now, you don't have to wait for something. So this is the moment, and it'll always be this moment when you can begin to do a practice, when you can begin to understand and see your situation clearly, and one has to recognize that you really don't have what you want yet. You can have a nice family, a nice job, a nice house, a nice car, everything. You can have all this stuff, nice guitars, nice instruments, everything, whatever you want. But if you're not happy inside, I mean, happy, joyful, then we haven't reached the place yet that we have to go. I'm not saying that I am either. I'm still searching for that, to live in that presence all the time. So, where was that? What was that saint that said, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you"? Treat others the way you want to be treated. If we could do that, in 2 seconds, the whole world would be a different place. Who would you want to see go hungry? Who would you want to see suffer? If we could really feel for others the way we think we feel for ourselves. So how to get the strength to do that? It's only going to come through practice and through grace. And if you're doing practice, it's already because of grace. So deal with reality. Don't get lost in fantasies about what great yogis we are. Deal with reality. Be humble. Understand that we don't have shit together yet, but we'd want to. How do we find the strength to do that? And it comes from practice, really. Anything you call practice is good. If you don't plant seeds, nothing will grow. And every second of our lives, every thought is a seed. Every emotion is a seed. Every action is a seed. We're always planting seeds. So we need to pay attention and try to plant the seeds that will bring us the fruits that we want, which is real love, real joy, real family, real consciousness, real understanding. Seeds of anger only bring more anger and more suffering. Seeds of happiness will bring more happiness, real happiness. So, and real happiness comes from uncovering that love that lives within us already, as we are, right now. So.
Wow. Thank you for these words.
Another long answer to a short question.
No. But I love to listen to what you're saying. Thank you so much. And maybe one last question from the community, from Christina. She writes, "Thank you for your great insights, Krishna Das. Having had a spiritual practice for decades yourself, how do you observe or feel the digital age has changed the way spirituality is lived? Do you feel digitalization and technology brings us closer or pushes us further away from the truth?"
I'm not really sure if I understand the question totally, but the state of the world is a result of the karmas of everybody in the world. The very difficult situation, the crazy situation the world is in now with COVID and all the political upheavals and everything. This comes from each individual. So the best thing to do is work on oneself and do whatever we can to affect whatever comes into our field of action in the best way we can. The internet is a tool, and it can be used for positive or negative. And it's being used for a lot of negativity now, but there's also positivity that can come from it. Once again, it's only an extension of the individual, the situation of every individual in the world. So whether it's better or worse or more difficult, it's kind of irrelevant. Each of us has to take responsibility for our own actions, our own thoughts, our own beliefs, and we need to work on ourselves. And that can include everyone, but we need to be doing some practice. Otherwise, we won't get the strength to deal with the difficult situations that arise. And we need that strength more and more every day.
Mm. Thank you very much, Katie, for your presence and for your time. It was a great pleasure to talk to you and to listen to all your words, and so much to take out of it. And yes, people are just writing thank you in the chat. So from all of us, from the bottom of our hearts, all the best for you in this time and in this isolation. And we all hope to maybe see you soon in our region and sing together with you. That would be lovely. I love your songs.
Yeah, I hope so. Please keep in touch, and then when I'm coming out that way, I usually go to Zurich these days. I've been going to Zurich. Hopefully we'll meet in person, in the body. Amazing. Yes. I can't imagine. Because right now, this whole interview, I'm looking at a blank screen. I can't see your face.
Still. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, that's okay. You know, what can I do? But anyway, it'd be great to meet you and meet the group and hang out together and sing and talk and enjoy each other's company.
Yes, that would be lovely. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take good care.
If anyone has questions to Spirit Bird or to us as an organization, just feel free now to unmute your microphones, or feel free to leave, whatever you want to do. Enjoy the evening, enjoy the day in New York.
Okay, I'm going to go.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care. Ram Ram.
You too. Ram Ram.